Welcome everyone. For today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a three-way race scenario for the 2024 presidential election. The Democratic ticket is, of course, Biden-Harris. Joe Biden, our incoming president, very liberal, and Kamala Harris, a former senator from California, ran for president in 2020, lost. Biden picked him to be his running mate. Biden picked her to be his running mate. I'm sorry about that. And the this is the scenario that Donald Trump loses the Republican primary and breaks away from the Republican Party. So Mike Pence beats him to the nomination in this scenario. Mike Pence's former vice president beats him to the nomination, and he's very much more of a traditionalist. He's very much more of a traditional conservative, kind of like in the Mitt Romney type, but, he did back Trump for most of his vice presidency, right until the very end. And his running mate, I'm picking Nikki Haley because she is very popular in the Republican Party, and the Republican Party is going to realize that she would be very powerful in the general election. She is a popular figure on both sides. Nikki Haley, she is I know she's from South Carolina. Don't really know her position, I guess, though. Former ambassador to the United Nations under Donald Trump. So Nikki Haley is Mike Pence's running mate, and then the third party ticket, and I'm assuming that this is going to be like an American Party kind of like in the George Wallace feel. The nominee is, of course, Donald Trump. This is if he breaks away. It's going to be like a Teddy Roosevelt scenario, 1912. Teddy Roosevelt, his former ally, beat him to the nomination, and Teddy Roosevelt breaks away from his party, and he brings all of these Republicans to his new Progressive Party. But this is the American Party, or, the Conservative Party, the American Conservative, the American Independent, whatever you want to call it. Could have so many names. Now, Pence would be smart by picking Nikki Haley as his vice president. He sees that. He's a smart guy. Trump is a less smart of a guy. I don't think he would choose someone who'd bring a lot of value to the ticket. Someone like Tim Scott, I think Trump would pick the second most conservative guy in the country, behind himself. And that is Tucker Carlson. Of Tucker Carlson Tonight, Fox News, extremely conservative, a face of the conservative movement or the Tea Party movement, whatever. And I think that Trump would choose Tucker Carlson to be his vice president, or his running mate. Even though Tucker Carlson declined to be a candidate in 2024, I think if Trump asked him to be his running mate, then Carlson would accept because, there's no campaigning involved. At that time, there's no fighting for the nomination. It's just easy. You go out and give speeches during the general election, whatever. Now, the Republicans are at a disadvantage already. But with the Trump-Carlson ticket, with the American Party ticket, they are, it's going to be bad for the third party and the Republican Party. The Democrats are going to win all these states. All these safe Democratic states. There's going to be no opposition here. They're going to win even bigger here because of the split Republican vote, of course. New Hampshire would be safe for them. Maine's first and Maine at large will be safe for them. Minnesota will be probably likely for them, I would say. We do have the 2020 map right here. Sorry about that. That was the 64 map. So yeah, these would all be safe for the Democrats. Now listen here. And I was about to do safe Republican states, but there are 0 safe Republican states. There are none. Because of the split Republican vote. It's not going to go, most of them aren't going to go to the Democrats, but, these safe Republican states, they're going to be a toss-up, and it really depends on which area of the country, we're talking about. And this really is a cool election scenario because these are all the toss-up states. Not all toss-ups, but they are going to be, highly contested, disputed, right? So this is a very cool scenario. Now, all the swing states, not all, but these 3. or these four, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and Nevada, will all go Democratic because of the split Republican vote. It's just vote splitting. It's inescapable. I mean, I would go back to the 1912 presidential election, and we look at this. Or actually, let's go to 1908. The Republicans win big. 321 electoral votes to 162 electoral votes. The states look pretty even, but the electoral vote count was hugely different. So it's a big Republican win. We go to 1912, when the Republican vote is split between Theodore Roosevelt and William Howard Taft. And look at this electoral map. Look at this. This is what vote splitting can do. Blue is for the Democrats. Green is for the Progressive Party, and the Republican Party only wins Vermont and Utah. It's amazing. Woodrow Wilson wins 435 electoral votes to Roosevelt's 88, and he doesn't even win the majority. Not even that close. He wins 41.8% of the entire, United States who cast their votes, right? So that was just to show you how much vote splitting can do. So these swing states, they're going to go to the Biden-Harris ticket, even if they're not hugely popular. I think Arizona would be pretty disputed because Joe Biden isn't very popular in a state like this. But we go to 2020. It went to Biden by 0.3%, or 49% of the population, all the voters voted for Trump. We split that, and Biden wins by a huge margin. Now, of course, it's not going to be exactly split. I would say in a state like Arizona, I think Trump and Carlson would do, they're going to do well in this region just because of, where it is. It's a very rural, very conservative state. And Trump is going to make Pence look like a traitor to the Republican Party. He's going to make Pence look like a liberal. He's going to say that Pence is like a Democrat. And that's going to hurt Pence very badly among the Republican Party. It's not going to, it's going to make Republicans not trust Pence anymore. We can't give the entire blue wall to the Democrats, and that wins them the election already. Again, with the Arizona, Trump wins 49% in Wisconsin, 48% in Michigan, and 49% in Pennsylvania. We split that, and Biden wins by a large margin. So, all these swing states, they're going to go Democratic. Virginia, Democratic. They went Democratic in 2020. There's not going to be a change here. Florida would go Democratic, with this vote splitting. Georgia would go Democratic if they won it in 2020. And North Carolina would go Democratic if they won it in 2020. Ohio's a little tricky. However, I will give Ohio to the Democrats. I do see Pence doing well in this region, and more well than others. And that's going to split the Republican vote right down the middle, because this is a region, right next door from Mike Pence's home state of Indiana. This is a region that Pence will do well in. This Rust Belt. Pence is going to excel in the Rust Belt. He comes from this region. So that will ultimately split the Republican vote right in half, making the Biden victory even larger, even more of a landslide. And I will give Maine second to Joe Biden as well. Sorry about this. Alright. I will give Mike Pence's home state of Indiana. I see him doing well here. It is his home state, of course. I think it would be very close between he and Biden, but I do think Pence would win the solid majority of the Republican votes, and I think he would win his home state of Indiana. Going down to Texas, this is a state that Biden will win. Trump won 52% of the vote there, and this will only lower. Joe Biden won 46%, and this is only going to get higher. More young people moving here and more minorities. And Mike Pence isn't going to do well among minorities. He comes from Indiana, a state with, the vast majority are white people. And he's not going to really connect with these African American voters. And Donald Trump isn't either, of course. he only won 30% of black voters in the 2020 election. So, and these Hispanics are not going to connect with either Trump or Mike Pence. So, I do think that, Joe Biden will be popular enough among these young people and minorities to carry him the state of Texas. And that puts him over the 400 electoral vote margin. Going to South Carolina, I do think that this is a Pence-Haley state, just because of Nikki Haley. Trump won it by 11% in 2020. I do think that Nikki Haley is extremely popular in this state. It is her home state, and I think just because that she is on the ticket, I think just narrowly, South Carolina will go Republican, because I do see some black voters here turning out for Nikki Haley. I think Pence and Haley could win up to 35% of the black vote here, and that will win them the state. I see West Virginia going Republican. This is going for Trump. This is a state where the Democrats won't do well in. There are states that the Democrats won't win, even with the split vote. Sure, Joe Biden, Joe Biden didn't even win half of what Trump won. So yes, this will be a Republican state, as many of these will. But this is a very conservative state, much more than Ohio, Indiana, and the blue ball, of course, in Iowa. Plus, it's not Mike Pence's home state. He won't really connect with these voters that much. He will in the Rust Belt, but not really West Virginia. And West Virginia is just such Trump country. I mean, when you think of West Virginia, you think of these Trump voters. I think that he would do pretty well in here. And I will point out that Tucker Carlson's home state is California, but of course they have no chance of winning that. Going to the South. This is Trump country. This is Republican country. The Democrats aren't really gonna have a shot in much of these. If one candidate does do better than the others. Yeah, I do see all of these going to the Republicans. Besides Mississippi, and we'll get to Mississippi. Oh my God, Y maps. I don't like Y maps. Here, I can zoom in here. Actually, I won't. So, the South. Will this be Pence country or Trump country? I see it being split. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I see Donald Trump carrying Alabama. This is too much of a rural region, too conservative for it to go to Mike Pence. Because remember, Trump is going to make Pence look like a liberal, a traitor to the Republican Party. Now, going up to Tennessee and Kentucky, for that matter, they are a bit more liberal, these states. Sure, they have less of an African American population, but as we go north, it's becoming more liberal. And, there's these big cities, a couple big cities in these states, Nashville, whatever, Louisville, that will go for Mike Pence. And Biden doesn't really have a shot in these states if he didn't even win half of the vote in some of these states. But, I do think Kentucky and Tennessee are a bit more liberal than, more southern states like Alabama. I see them going to Pence while Trump carries Alabama. I also think Trump will carry Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma. These are states where, there are diehard fans of Donald Trump. You always see Trump flags in the South. And, Mike Pence is so unpopular in the Republican Party right now. I don't see him winning the majority of Republican votes. I think Trump will do better than Mike Pence out of Republican votes. I really do. But I see, we go to Mississippi. Oops, sorry, that's my eBay. Here it is, Mississippi. This is one of the closest of these deep southern states, apart from these swing states, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, and North Carolina, of course. Mississippi goes to Trump by 16%. Biden wins, definitely more than half of the Trump votes. But this South, and, looking back, I am going to change Tennessee to Trump. I do think that Trump will carry Tennessee, looking back. But Mississippi, I think it will also go to Trump. Because of this, Mike Pence will be so unpopular in this region. Alright, the South is going to hate Mike Pence. He is so unpopular in the Republican Party. Maybe, in Indiana and Kentucky and South Carolina, just because Nikki Haley can win. But, this South, this solid Republican, conservative, they're going to hate Mike Pence. They're going to think that he is a liberal. Moving on to Kansas. Kansas went to Trump by 14 points. Less than Mississippi. I definitely see this as Biden territory, because of course we always think of Kansas as Republican area, but 2024, if Trump wins, it's going to be an interesting year. But this is why I gave Kansas to the Democrats. Just because Mike Pence will be more popular in this region than the South, than Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, all these states. He will be more popular than here. Because Kansas is a surprisingly liberal state. They have a Democratic governor, and they elected a Democratic governor because the Republican candidate was too radically conservative for them. So this does show that even Republicans in Kansas are a bit liberal. And, Mike Pence is going to be seen as pretty liberal. So I do think some Republicans are going to vote for Mike Pence. And, of course, there's these diehard fans of Donald Trump who will still vote for Donald Trump. And that ultimately splits the Republican vote in half. And, that vote split right in half is going to grant Biden victory. I mean, we could think of this we can think of it like this way. And this is, of course, an extreme scenario, but it's still a scenario. Let's say Trump wins 50% of the Republican vote in a state. Pence wins 50%. Let's say it's in a Republican state where Trump wins 50%, Pence wins 50%. It's just a narrowly Republican state. That state will go to Biden because they were split. Let's say in this Republican state that Trump wins 99% of the vote and Pence wins 1%. Then Trump will win the state, right? Because he has almost all the Republican vote. It just makes sense. Moving on to Missouri. I believe went solidly. Yes, it did go solidly for Trump, but just by 4 points. 0.4 points. This one is very, very hard. I think this might be the closest state in this entire election. Missouri. I will give Missouri to Biden. Because just like Kansas, just like how I explained in Kansas, this is a state that Mike Pence will win some votes in. And that ultimately splits the Republican vote 50-50. And Joe Biden is popular enough to win a state like this. It's not like, a super rural state where Biden is so unpopular. Iowa will also go Democratic. It went to Obama in 2008 and 12. I see it going to Biden. If I gave Kansas to Biden, then I have to give Iowa. Iowa would even probably go more likely for Biden than Kansas. They both went likely for Trump in 2020, so, and Iowa's even more liberal than Kansas, So, moving on. I see Biden winning Nebraska's first and Nebraska's second, because this is an area that Mike Pence will do well in, like I said. But still, Donald Trump is very popular in a region like this. But I do think that Mike Pence will be a little more popular than Trump here, and Biden will win Nebraska at large. He will connect with these voters more, I think, in Nebraska, like he did in Kansas. And Nebraska's 3rd district is just too conservative to go to the Biden-Harris ticket. We go to 2020. Trump wins this by 53%. But, just show how Republican it is. But I do think that this is an area that would go to Mike Pence. He will connect with the voters here more. However, the remaining states, I think everyone would go to Donald Trump. These are where, this is solely Trump country, and it won't change. People love Donald Trump here. Idaho, one of the most conservative states in the country. Wyoming, one of the most conservative. We go to Wyoming. Trump won by 43%. It's no competition in these states. I don't see Mike Pence coming anywhere close. This is an area that's going to hate Mike Pence. I think that Mike Pence could have a lower approval rating in this area than Joe Biden, and that really shows you some. Now, moving on to the last state, I do think that this is a state that Biden and Harris would win. Going back, Alaska, Trump won by 10 points. I think by 2024, if it's a matchup between Biden and Pence, or Biden and Trump for that matter, I think the Republicans would only win it by 5 points. That is my prediction. That they would only win it by 5 points. So, Alaska, statistics show Alaska has become more democratic, but with the split Republican vote, I don't think, we're gonna, it's going to be anything crazy. I do think that Biden would win it for the first time since 1964. Oh, wait. Yeah, since 1964. That's pretty crazy. So, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris win the election by a landslide with 435 electoral votes to, Donald Trump comes in second with 74 electoral votes, and Mike Pence, the Republican nominee, comes in third with 29 electoral votes. And looking back, I will give Nebraska's third to Donald Trump, and that gives him 75 electoral votes to Mike Pence's 28. Just looking at all the other states around it that I gave to Trump, I don't see Nebraska's third. I didn't realize that this is more of a conservative region than I thought when I went back and saw that Trump won by, 53 points, pretty crazy. So, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe, watch all my other predictions if you haven't, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you all in the next video.